What is up, down and sideways, all you beautiful individuals? Welcome back. It's another epi of League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you beauties, and you best believe your bottom dollar, it is a T1 themed episode from start to finish. Mark's got the hoodie on. He's feeling good. Everybody is happy except for Weibo Gaming after these World Finals.
I'll be honest, I think even Weibo's going to find some time to be a little bit happy about even reaching the finals when they look back on this year. Yes, a little bit of the sting of losing the series and losing a series that was almost the fastest series in Worlds.
30 seconds off. Come on, guys. Couldn't have.
Just you got to find those 30 seconds somewhere within that victory. Clean it up just that slight bit. And then it was the record for T1. But I think they're not going to care. They'll take the championship. They'll take the trophy. This hoodie, it's great. But you know what? It's out of date now. We only got the 3 stars on the cuff. We got to get that 4th one on.
Well, we'll have to get a permanent marker, draw one on there for you. But oh my God, the merch stuff that they're going to have after this, the 4 times Faker thumbs up and everything. Oh my God. You had him in the teaser video saying the 4th one is for my teammates. And you can't feel better or happier for a guy like Kyria after what happened last year, heartbreak in that Game 5 against DRX, and even more so for your guy Zeus, who is always the first name people mention when it comes to choking in finals. Zeus regular season versus playoffs is a different animal. Well, my man just put together the biggest top lane gap that you've ever seen in a finals, and he did it against one of the icons in the top lane. The Shy was 1-16-5 across these 3 games.
Ooh, that is a Giga beatdown coming to the Giga Chad, the Shy, from Mr. God of Thunder himself, Zeus, stepping up in the finals. And this is a redemption revenge tour for T1 completed, and it might not be the most spectacular of finals because of how overwhelmed Weibo was with the strength of T1. We were treated as such a series with T1 versus JDG and LNG before that, these type of things. You still have to look at this run. You think Zeus getting a finals performance like this, 250 plus CES advantage over those 3 games over someone like the Shy. The
3
Shy
different champions too for Zeus.
The Shy could play his own imaginary 4th game of this series, and he still probably isn't equal in CS with what Zeus had in that advantage top side. Fantastic job from him. Owner in the jungle finally has his strong run with the team, and he puts it together in all these key clutch moments and plays. Great stuff from him. Faker, the unkillable Demon King for his teammates. You can't tug at the heartstrings more than that from a 10-year veteran, and everything else. He wants it for the young kids on the squad. Guma breaks the T1 curse with Jin, and Kyria, no more crying at this World's Finals. It's all smiles.
And we talked about at the start of this event, what could possibly rival the script, the storyline that we got out of DRX last year. I think we were both like, maybe a full revenge tour for T1 is the only thing you can put in the same category. They end up going through the Elite 4 of the LPL, all 4 seeds out of China, and not only do they beat them, 11-1. A single loss to, by the way, the best team in the world, JDG, during that run. Absolutely incredible levels of dominance from T1. I can't believe how quickly, from the Swiss stage to knockouts, they just turned on and everything was flying at perfect levels.
And there were signs of this type of form, this type of capabilities from T1, right? Really reassuring you that we were going to see T1 return to the form that we saw them at the beginning of the year before Faker had his absence. Return to the form that saw them be runners-up at almost every major event last year. Now they are the final champions. When all is said and done, they get this revenge. The run that they went on, comparing it to DRX, I think the only thing that maybe vaults DRX still ahead of this story run for T1, which crazy to say that we're comparing these type of ones, is you look at the way that the finals played out. Just the drama that comes in of how that series played, 5 full games, everything on the line, all those things. And that's no fault to Weibo, no fault to T1 that this is the finals that we roll in and end up with. The performances are clean. It is a recaptured title for T1 and the LCK.
10 years since their first one as an organization. Obviously, that DRX one, they were slightly bigger underdogs than T1 coming into this event, despite not being that top seed from the LCK. In hindsight now, it really does look like T1 GDG was the real finals, and I know Weibo had that much easier bracket. They were probably actually, like the 4th, 5th, 6th best team at this World Championship. But heading into those finals, I don't think it mattered who T1 was matching up, even if it was their nemesis Gen G that made it all the way there. I don't think anyone was beating T1 at this Worlds.
No, and I think overall, when you look at the one side with Weibo on the bracket, you can kind of see obviously a lesser power, but you still have to pay your respect and recognize the win that they have over BLG is really that path. Of course, you can talk the luck of the draw and NRG getting their way through in that first one in the quarterfinals, but Weibo takes care of business against BLG. They find a way to get that higher gear to perform at an elite level, and I think BLG slips up a little bit, and then it equals itself out, and you got yourself a series. There wasn't any of that slipping up from T1. There was no room for that extra gear to get in there for Weibo, is one of the things that T1 did so well in this series.
And you want to talk about the impact of Faker and T1 on esports. Why everyone, Riot Korea, the LCK, and just Riot in general, so happy they got there. 6.4 million peak viewership for a 3-0 stomp finals. That's over 1.3 million more than what we got last year out of that hyped up Deft versus Faker 5-game set. If this was a competitive series, we're probably breaking 7 mil on this.
Oh man, record breaking for another year. And this is, you're right. If we can get a little bit more juice out of the series, a little bit more, are they going to get it? Yeah, I think we do get a couple more people clicking on that stream, getting that view count up. Love to see this. Love that this is the way it comes through. You even had, of course, the South Korean president releasing a statement congratulating T1. You had, essentially the national news service in the country covering this type of run. It's a big deal seeing this come through. And of course, Faker, the big celebrity, the unkillable Demon King, getting that 4th title.
In North America, you get Magic Johnson wishing Team Liquid luck at Worlds. Korea gets the president of the damn country congratulating them for winning. That's just the LCK versus LCS difference, you know?
That's just how it goes. But you love to see it. You love to see kind of everybody celebrate this one and really kind of give it the type of celebration, type of praise that it deserves, because this is a serious achievement. Whether you care about esports or not, thinking about an organization, a team, a player, even if you want to identify strictly onto Faker, that 10-year run, getting this 4th championship, all the trials and tribulations of the last 7 years between these championships. You gotta be paying your respects and happy for T1 and happy for the T1 players.
If you got a nickel for every time Riot showed Faker crying from 2017 this Worlds, you'd be a very, very rich man, Mark.
Yeah, you'd be ranking up them dollars. How many times now, though, are we gonna get all the talk about 4 titles for the LCK champions in T1?
You think Faker's legacy couldn't get any more locked in and untouchable? You combine how bad T1 looked, and we need to do a video on just the year recap for T1, but how bad they looked when Faker was injured, to winning Worlds. That same team losing back-to-back series to DRX is the best team in the world.
And I think as well, seeing the other 4 members of T1 refine their form, refine what we knew about these players, and reestablish that on the Rift against the hardest of competition that there is at this event this year. You saw it with T1. You saw the Faker effect. We knew the record without him. You saw how lost these players looked. These players are skilled, great players that we're talking about. Zeus matchup, top lane, owners, redemption, all these things. They all start with Faker getting back in that lineup and restarting those keys, getting that engine warmed up again and revved up for the race to the World Championship.
Faker in these press conferences immediately got rid of speculation. He says, what? I'm under contract with T1, so I still got work to do with T1. I'll be back. So retirement talk, get it away. Now we can be talking This is now 2 full years with these starting 5. In 2021, it was Kana, not Zeus in that top lane. So 2 full years, body of work for these guys. We got to start talking new era dynasty for T1. If they could somehow lock up these starting 5 again, which I know that'll be a pretty expensive roster under the new salary cap era in the LCK. But you look at now, despite not having all these titles that you would have with a dynasty usually, so many second place finishes, so many finalists at MSI 2022, top 3 at MSI this year, 3 in a row second place finishes to Gen G, and we forget that they started this roster with the historic 18-0 regular season. The accolades that they've hit over 2 years, they're right in dynasty conversation for me.
It's truly incredible. Yes, they should be in that conversation for Dynasty. They will be denied, I will say, by the strictest of rule sets or, type of judgment on this type of list. Would be the only thing that would keep it off it, and saying, you know what, I don't see enough of that number 1 place, that first place finish. That would be the one thing that you would be looking at. But the top tier of competition that we have seen from this team the last 2 to 3 years, if you're figuring out this window for the roster, yes, you have to be putting them in that conversation. And I think that is the angle. If I'm Joe Marsh, that's where I'm going in contract negotiations with these guys. Is you got to offer them that type of tidbit, that type of glory that so few players could ever achieve or write their name in the history book with, is pushing that dynasty, pushing this run for T1 to that next tier, saying, you know what, we've been fantastic, but in this fantastic run, we've only got 1-2 trophies to really ever show for it. Let's bring a couple more into this run as a group. You know what? Delay 1 year, 2 more years before you try and grow somewhere else, try to grow your bank account somewhere else, whatever your focus is, and rightfully so, that's where it can be. But you know what? We have an opportunity, if we stick together, to run it back, improve, learn a little more, and try to get this dynasty in a higher position.
And I think what you need to take into account is the culture in Korean esports and the LCK. Any player you talk to, even getting on T1 is like the accolade you want to reach. You've heard Guma talk about it when he was coming up as a young guy, when he finally got to start with the main squad. That's where a lot of these dreams start, is just being on a T1 roster. So I wouldn't be shocked if some of these guys are willing to take a pay cut. You think Faker needs to get some multi-million-dollar playing contract to keep going? He's already a partial owner, minority owner of this T1 squad, and I wouldn't be shocked if guys were taking a cut just to stay and kind of continue to level up this legacy for the organization. And what feels different about this roster than, the other dynasty you want to talk with the Bang and Wolf era? I've seen so many, behind the scenes and after the fact from those years of how burnt out, and sad the mental toll it took on even guys like Faker when they lose, because the expectations are so ridiculously high for this organization. But this squad feels different. Any of the behind the scenes stuff, these guys are laughing during coin tosses for the World Finals. It seems like a breath of fresh air that this squad has, that for being the best team in the world, they're pretty laid back.
They've got the right mix with Faker, the young kids, and how each aspect of that, right? Faker, how he approaches this attitude and this environment with the young players that are growing and learning, and how the young players approach someone like Faker, not, being necessarily so scared off of the unkillable Demon King title and approaching him as a real teammate type of thing, is one of those aspects that you see play out through this roster. The strengths that they all have, I think really when you do examine it, of course, there's been some questions about Zeus performing in the biggest of moments and not in these type of things. Looking at Owner as well has had plenty of questions in this last year about his time on T1. I think all these players can look at themselves and look at what happens with Faker in the lineup and say, you know what, one more year before we go and spread our wings, one more year before we get that big paycheck, whatever it's going to be. One more year beside Faker, learning, continuing to improve, and seeing what his effect is and how that's unlocking this performance, this level from me as a player. That's got to be something I think is on the table and interesting.
How about this dude just picked up World Finals MVP. It's his second finals. Zeus is 19. He's 19, Mark.
That's the other bonkers thing really to get at this point, is because, again, looking at this roster, all that has happened, and this achievement, and trying to go where you go from here, how do you build and everything else. How do you even start that conversation as a 19-year-old at this point? And I'm talking about, look, you got to be thinking about, am I ready to grow somewhere else? Do I want to do this type of thing? 19 years old, you don't know what you're doing type of thing. This is crazy.
Which is why some team might throw a fat stack for Zeus, and he might say, "Oh, well, I already got a world's title. Let's go get some money." And you know what? I wouldn't blame the guy if he did.
Hey, wouldn't be the first, wouldn't be the last. Cannot fault anyone in that type of situation. Either way, I think there's very intriguing options and reasons why you would want to stay together as this T1 lineup. And at the same time, there's always going to be those exciting opportunities, that chance to start something different, something fresh, always on the table.
And the camaraderie between these five, I would think they'd do everything they could to stay together as well. But yeah, it's hard to stay that razor focused when you're entering what is sure to be the craziest offseason that the LCK has had, maybe ever, with so many marquee free agents becoming available. And after this World's run, any of these free agents on T1 are going to be some of the most sought-after players in their position in the entire offseason to look at. But luckily for T1, the offseason starting big for them. They say, how do we grow the biggest brand in League of Legends even more? Let's bring in the King of the North, Reckless, as a support, rumored to be joining T1 Academy, according to the boys and girls at Sheep eSports. And I read this morning. I couldn't grasp my head around it. Reckless is going to T1 Academy?
All the talk about, I'm going to be this now new veteran support. I'm taking all that experience from ADC and being on all these professional teams and different environments and attitudes, everything else. And I'm going to know how to communicate and be better with them. My man, I hope you know how to communicate in Korean. That's going to be the big one moving over to T1 Academy if this is the move. Crazy. Another chapter in the wild story of Reckless. And believe it or not, I don't think this one's the most wacky that we have seen come through, the most unbelievable one. If you ask me, when you're going through what has happened the last couple of years, last couple of off seasons for my man with the tattoos and the pose from the LEC, he comes through signing with T1 Academy. This is going to be one heck of a trip.
And I know that there were rumors that he was fielding LEC offers too. Again, as the role swap, he's been spamming support for 6 months now, almost. Sounding like he's opting to go for this, which is a wild ride for him. I know years and years ago, I think in between 2017 and 2018, he was in chats with maybe going to the LPL. This is when he was, clearly the best ADC in EU heading over there. He's talked about playing overseas like this, something he's wanted to do in his career. Maybe this is the opportunity for him, and you guarantee week 5 in the regular season or something. You gotta say, Kyria, have the week off. Go have some fun, because we want to bump up some viewership and have Reckless starting alongside Faker.
When is the New Jeans concert? Find out when that's going on. Just book Kyria a nice week vacation. Go have fun, bro. Bring in Reckless for the views. That would be one hell of a thing. I actually really like this move. I'm willing to be very positive and supportive of this type of one for someone like Reckless. I think, as you mentioned, he has been very open, very expressive about wanting to, try something different, try somewhere new, try the LPL and everything else that he has talked about, those teams, that region. Still, obviously, a lot of respect for the LCK. Goes into this T1 Academy situation. You know that there's going to be a lot of stuff, obviously, behind the scenes and as well down with Academy, but still being involved, scrimming, practicing with the main big team is part of being on those Academy rosters in Korea and being in that system. Reckless learning from Kyria, this is going to be a good time.
Yeah, honestly, I think we've seen since the G2 era with G2 for Reckless, him kind of change and have zero ego to be able to go to an Academy team and say, I could learn so much. Number one, scrimming against that A team of T1, as you mentioned. And number two, just being in what I think everyone would consider the best organization in competitive League of Legends, and maybe the best farm system for young players, because this is Guma. This is Zeus. These are guys that they have seen grow up. And how many teams around the globe have a player that has played in the T1 system?
And what a better year than this one to have this come through when we just had 10 years of excellence from Faker, capitalized with this return to championship form. Looking at this and saying, yes, he's not some fresh, hot recruit coming in. He is someone with this veteran baggage still, even if he is making this transition to a different position. I like this from T1. I like this from Reckless. I like it all across the board. Yes, is it unexpected? Yes, is it still, kind of getting wonky? And how are we going to see this play out? That's absolutely part of it and going to be true. But I think at the end of the day, this is one of those type of moves where if Reckless really wants to roll that dice on if he is going to have some type of impact as a support, taking an opportunity to hone your craft, learn, improve like this in this environment from T1, I think is a great move from him. It's certainly one that's not going to be paying him any more than he was making in the LFL or the LEC. Yes, Reckless is a player with a history and enough of a career where he doesn't necessarily need to be so focused on that financial angle. But I think it is something to keep in mind when you do see this and you do see how committed he is going to be to this move, to understand that there's a lot of other factors playing in here and a lot of the factors that should lead to your respect for a player like this.
And listen, Reckless isn't going to boost a T1 brand that already has Faker, but you don't think T1 Academy games are going to get a boost in viewership if Reckless is playing, at least from the Western side?
Without question. I've already got like 2-3 friends of mine saying, okay, when's the Academy games for T1? I need to know what this whole system is because I got to see my guy in this situation. People are tuning in.
And, shout out to Sheep Esports. They waited till after finals to drop this one and say, oh, by the way, that team that just won, well, Reckless is joining them on that Academy squad. First of many insane dominoes that are sure to fall in this free agency offseason in the LCK. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you. Beautiful people. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on that flippity flip.